In the far north, where the seas are cold and the skies never rest, there lived a people carved from the ice, fire, and iron. They were called Vikings, men and women who feared no storm, bowed to no king, and lived by the strength of their hands. Their homes were simple, wood, stone, and smoke. Their hearts wide as the sea. They rose from the dawn, prayed to the gods, and sharpened their knife blades. For them, every sunset was a promise, and every sunrise a test of honor. They believed the gods watched from above, Odin the wanderer, Thor the thunder bearer, Freya the fearless. To die in battle was not a loss, it was glory, a ticket to Valhalla, the great hall where heroes drink beside the gods forever. When the ice melted and the seas opened, their long ships sailed out like wolves across the waves. Some sought lead, others sought war, but all sought faith. They burned bright, fierce, loyal, and unbroken. At night, they sang by firelight, telling stories of gods and men, of love, revenge, and endless courage. Their women were strong, their warriors proud, their children raised to stand tall against the storm. And even now, when the waves howled through the forts and the ocean roars against the cliffs, you can still hear them. The sons of the north, the voice of the fire and steel, the spirit of the Vikings, alive forever. The sea was their path and their test to the Vikings. The ocean was alive, a ruthless beast that could take over or bless. They did not fear it. They spoke to it. They listened to its anger, and they sailed straight into its jaws. Their ships were slender, built for speed, with carved dragon heads to scare away spirits of the deep. Each man held an oak. Each woman tied the ropes, and the wind carried their destiny across the cold grey waters. Days turned into weeks. They crossed the lands no map held ever drawn, from the green shores of England to the wide rivers of the east. They raided, they traded, they built settlements where once there was only silence. They were not monsters, as some people called them. They were seekers, seekers of land, seekers of honor, and seekers of tomorrow. When they returned home, they came not as men who left but as a legend who had walked with death and lived. At the feasting halls, the warriors sat shoulder to shoulder, their faces lit by the firelight. They spoke of the sea that nearly swallowed them, of the battles won, blooders lost, Their knot was thick with smoke, lighter, and song. The king of song that makes your blood. Remember when it came from. They are scoured the poet of the north, sang of struggles and fate, of heroes who fell but rose again in memory. Each word was a stone in the walls of eternity. As the night deepens, old men look forward to the sky, to the bright paths of stars. They called by floods, the bridge to the realms of the gods, and they whispered, "Someday we too will close." The fire burned low, the voices faded, but the spirits of the Vikings never died. It still lights the waves, it still hums in the wind, and when you stand by the sea and listen closely, you might hear it, the call of the north. Beyond the laws of war, there was life. The Vikings were not only fighters. The Vikings, they were fathers. The Vikings, they were mothers. The Vikings, they were dreamers. Their villages stood close to the sea. Small wooden homes burned by smoke and song. Every morning, the women tended to their fires, baked bread, barley, and light, and mended the seas that carried men to far-away lands. The men hunted, fished, shaped iron with their hands, turning cold metal into axes, blades, and tools. Each piece of work was made with pride, because in the north, skills was honor. Their children learn easily, not just how to fight, but how to live. They learned how to read the weather, how to respect the gods, and how to force fear without learning. Stories were their teachings. At night, when the wind howled, the hot fire was gathered by the earth. Old voices told tales of Thor's hammer and Odin's wisdom, and above souls who stood against the darkness. Each story carried a lesson that courage was greater than fear, that loyalty was scared, that a person's word was worth more than gold. The Viking believed that every man had a fate woven by three sisters known as the Nuns, who spanned the thread of life under the roots of the great tree Yardley. To fight that fate was foolish. To meet with the courage, that was glory. And yet, even in their harsh word, there was room for love. Men gifted arms linked to their women as a sign of promise. Women ruled the homes, guarded the families, and even stood as warriors when the need came. They lived hard, but they lived true. Their laughter could fill the hall. Their songs could echo across the forts. And when one of their own passed, on, they sent them to the next world with fire, a burning ship set upon the sea, its flames lightening the night like a final star. It was their way of saying goodbye and of reminding the gods that another soul was coming home. That was the Viking way: to live with strength, to die with honor, and to be remembered forever. The North could not hold them forever. The Vikings were born with the sea in their blood, the wind in their bones. When the fort grew quiet and the snow melted, they pushed their long ships at once more, not just for war, but for the wonder. They sailed west to the green lands of Britain and Ireland, where their axes sang and their banners rose. They went east to the great rivers of Russia, trading fowl, iron, amber for silk, silver, and stories. They reached the walls of Constantinople, where the golden domes shone like a dream, and there the Viking warriors became the Valagans guard, sworn to protectors of the emperors, feared by all who faced them wherever they went. They left more than fear. They left names, terms, bloodlines. They built routes, founded kingdoms, and carved their spirit into the land far from home. Some stayed and became farmers again. Others took local wives and built new whole lives. And the old word Viking slowly changed from a name of leaders to a name of settlers, to a name of explorers, to a name of kings. In time, they reached the edge of the known world. A man named Leif Erikson, son of Alec the Red, sailed even far across the endless sea and found a land they called Vinland. Long before any map showed it, they had touched the shores of what we now call America. They never claimed it, never built empires of marbles or gold. They were men of wood and iron, content to see what lay beyond the horizon and to know the world was wider than any one kingdom. Their journeys changed the North, and the North changed the world. Even as centuries passed, their spirit did not fade. It lived on in the story, in the sages were swept past by firelight, and in every soul who dares to love home to find. Some greater, because to be a Viking was never just to fight. It was to seek, it was to endure, and to believe that fate favors the bold. Every age must end, even for the mighty Vikings. The gods grew silent. The old songs began to fade. Across the North, new faith came. A cross replacing the hammer. A single God standing where once many ruled. Some bowed, some fought, But most important, that change is another kind of war. But most understand that change is another kind of war. One that no blade can win. The long ships sailed less often. The sword hung longer on the walls, and the children who once dreamed of Valhalla now learned new player under quiet roofs. Yet, the heart of the North did not die. It only changed shape. The courage that once burned in battle turned into the strength to build, to farm, to trade. The pride that once lost axes now led kingdoms. Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, all born from the blood and sweat of those who came before. But in the winter nights, when the fire burned low, the old men still told stories of Odin's wisdom, of Thor's thunder, of ships that cut through the storms like knives through silk, and the children listened with eyes, their hearts stirring with something ancient, something wide, because through the word had changed the spirit of the Viking, never left it. It lived in the daring of explorers, in the courage of sailors, and in every soul who refuses to bow, to fear, to say the gods now sleep in Asgard. Their hearts quiet and the cold, but sometimes when the distant split the skies and the sea roars like a beast, you can still feel them watching, smiling, for the world they built still stands, and their blood still beats in us. Oh, the age of the Viking is over, but their spirit fears, flee, unbroken, will never